Okay, so I haven't done a video for the Smoking Grill and Lounge in a while, so I picked up this cigar, Flor Dominicana Cameroon Cabinet, and anyway, it was $8 over at the Cigar Warehouse, which was really nice. And let me see here, do a little bit of a history. I mean, I thought it was originally the Cameroon Cabinet Lancero. There was a bunch of verbiage on that, and so on and so forth. But it's the Flor Dominicana Cameroon Cabinet number 1. That's what it is. And over here at, what is it? This is Cigars International. It's $220 for a box of 24 on this thing. And let me see here, over at Famous Smoke, it's about the same, about $220. Yeah, they're all about the same. Around $220 you can find a box of them. So the mix here is it's an aged Cameroon Lajero wrapper, which is kind of cool. So that's a pretty strong wrapper actually for the cigar. The binder's Nicaragua, and the filler is Dominican, grown on the LFD farm. So that's kind of interesting. So there we go. So it's kind of a mix of 3 different continents, or 3 different countries, so to speak. You got the Cameroon from Africa, the Nicaraguan from Nicaragua, of course, and the Dominican from the Dominican Republic as well. So it says here that the price was around $8.72. So I think I got a little bit of a bargain on this cigar. So my own personal take on this cigar too, basically, is LFD is kind of a little bit, you know, I've smoked a fair share of LFDs back in the day. Oh, you can see the cell is a little bit yellow too, which is kind of cool. And I've smoked a few of these back in the day. You know, they're pretty punchy and they're pretty strong. So the Andalusian Bull came out, and that cigar was really light. I mean, it was completely different from what the normal LFD line denotes, right? You got that big power in the mouth, a lot of power in the nose if you retrohale. The Andalusian Bull wasn't that. It was like very Cuban-esque, very nice. Had that really kind of a nice sweetness to it and everything like that. And that was a great cigar. And so I saw this, and I'm like thinking, well, maybe this isn't going to be like the regular LFD stuff and more like the Andalusian Bull kind of stuff. Talked to some other people too. They like the original release of Lennox. I've smoked, I guess, some of the later releases of Lennox, and I was kind of a bit underwhelmed on that, though. But one thing I do have to admit, though, for you know, Lito Gomez and this brand of cigars, which is I really like the fact that he blends things a little bit differently here and there too, and some of them are a lot different. Like the Andalusian Bull is a lot different from the you know, the regular line of cigars, which was nice. Dion Giolito does that with his Illusion cigars too. You have the Epernay line, which is a fairly light line, and then you go into like the MJ, MK, all the other Ks and all the other Ultras and all that kind of stuff, and that gets a lot stronger. You know, it has a little bit more oomph, a little bit more pop to it. So he's got all broad ends of the spectrum on there. So it's nice to be able to smoke one brand of cigars and be able to do the whole spectrum of, you know, strength and flavor and taste and so on and so forth through the brand. And this, I think Lito Gomez, my own personal knucklehead opinion on this thing is that they're doing a pretty good job of doing that. So anyway, I saw this in the bargain bin at Cigar Warehouse and figured I would pick it up for $8 and give it a shot. And I hadn't done a video for the Smoking Grill and Lounge in so long that it was like, okay, it's time to at least release some kind of a video. You know, it's been this COVID thing, everybody's on lockdown, and so, you know, I can't get a hold of Paul in the sense I can talk to Paul, but we're not shooting any videos or anything like that. So he's staying where he is, and well, me, I'm not staying where I am because I have to fly for a living. So that makes it kind of where I'm out in the wild. But one thing I like about this particular size of cigar, a Lonsdale, it just seems to have all of the good things for a cigar. You get enough of that tobacco in there where it's you're going to get a really good true flavor in there. It's not going to be like this giant ring gauge cigar with a lot of volato in there because you need it to burn. And so for me, a Lonsdale is one of the more perfect sizes, for me at least, to smoke, because I feel you can get enough, you know, flavor and taste out of this cigar like as it is, as opposed to like a bigger ring gauge cigar. And I don't know why that trend has gone that way. More bang for your buck, I guess. If you're smoking a cigar that's, you know, as big around as that and about that long, and you get it for $8, I mean, I think you're probably thinking that it's a pretty good deal. So anyway, but I'm more traditional with cigars like this. So as you can see, plenty of smoke production right out the gate. Didn't like that quite good enough. Gonna get wonky right out the gate. Little kind of a cacao on the palate right as it starts out here on this cigar. Kind of a, it's the pepper, or that spicy peppery oomph is not too bad on the nose. It has a bit of a punch, a lot more bit of a punch than that Andalusian Bull, that's for sure, on there. And then there's that heavy kind of cacao tobacco finish on the palate. It's starting out fairly heavy with the finish, fairly heavy with the retro as well. Yeah, so anywho, like I said, it's been a while since I've released a video on the Smoking Girl Lounge. I figured I would do this cigar here. It's a good looking cigar too, with the wrapper and everything like that. It's you know, it's got some seams and veins and everything like that in it, and it's got kind of a blotchy, almost a cross between a Colorado Claro and a Colorado with the blotches in there, because there's some red in there and more of the paper sack in there on that thing. But really, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know how many times I've, like, you know, been pre-lighting a cigar and everything like that, and the cigar is just like completely different from what I'm getting on the pre-light. And then I start smoking and it's just like, well, the pre-light was this, but this is this, so I don't really pay much attention to any of that stuff. As long as it smokes good, that's all that matters, really, in my book. Yeah, pepper and spice is really tamped back. I mean, even in that little bit of cigar right there, it's really tamped back. Making the retro quite pleasant. A little bit of a honey sweetness in there. Still got really that heavy, thick, chewy cacao and tobacco on the finish on the palate as well, though. It's still really prevalent on there. But not too bad. Fairly pleasant cigar to smoke. One thing I have been doing lately is I was watching a video, I think Alec Rubin from Alec Bradley, I think. Anyway, he was talking about how, you know, you can tell how much the wrapper plays on a cigar. He said what you do is you take a cigar cutter, you just lightly score the wrapper like so. Well, you didn't see that. Anyway, I was lightly scoring the wrapper, and so now granted he was doing this with an unlit cigar, but I'm kind of a knucklehead, so but I wanted to get those first few puffs just to like kind of get an idea. And then you take wrapper off, like so. So you probably can't see that, but I've just scored like up to here. So all that's exposed right now is the binder. There's no wrapper on this part of the cigar, it's just the binder. And that little bit, yeah. So what he said is that you can basically get a gist as to like how much the wrapper is contributing to the cigar just by scoring that little bit and taking that little bit off of the cigar. And I must say that the wrapper definitely, it's not like 70 or 50% of the flavor of the cigar though. Like a lot of people are saying that the wrapper is like heavily influences the cigar. But there's a good, you know, say 20% of the flavor of the cigar here that is not there without the wrapper on there, I would say. It's still got that like cacao kind of finish on the palate with the tobacco. It's still got that honey sweetness. What it is missing though is like there was kind of a little bit of a tangliness, a little bit of a citrusy kind of a tangliness that was coming up, starting to come up before I cut the wrapper off. And that has disappeared and tamped back, and I think that's due to what the wrapper was contributing to the cigar on here. So, and that's like about, I'd say about 20% of the cigar that it's doing it to. That's my own personal opinion. You got to make sure too on the long stale or the thinner ring gauge cigars that you don't heat it up too much. You want to smoke it low and slow, kind of like when you're doing, you know, smoking brisket or anything like that. You want it low and slow on there. Don't want to be going too fast or too slow. You want to kind of maintain a balance. Another thing you can do too when you're smoking too fast or whatever, or you know, you can feel up here, because I like to feel up here a lot of the time to just see like how hot it is. And what I'll do is I'll just blow through the other way and kind of set it down and let it relax and let it kind of chill a little bit there. So that's what I'll do. And it really helps. Another thing too is like, you know, if you're kind of smoking a little slow and you blow through that way, it actually kind of like ignites it. I've noticed that it kind of ignites it a little bit and gets that flame going. So you're blowing the smoke out, you're blowing air through it, and it's kind of igniting it, and then it'll catch the tobacco in there and it'll start burning again, even when it's down kind of really low and you can't get a lot of smoke. Just a couple of things I picked up along the way. Another thing too is you got to be careful when you score this this wrapper as well, because what happens is the binder will have a tendency. I've smoked a few cigars this way, just testing it out, and the binder will actually kind of come up a little bit, so you just need to be careful of that as well. So, but that's why you don't want to really like score like, you know, a big piece. You just want to do a little bit so that you can kind of get an idea as to like how it is, how, you know, how the flavor is affected by the wrapper. And yeah, you know, people saying that the wrapper doesn't affect any of the flavor of the cigar, I mean, that to me I would have to disagree with as well. I mean, there's a balance in there of how much of the wrapper, but I would say even in a smaller ring gauge cigar, the wrapper is not going to affect it like 50 or 70% of the cigar. I don't see that happening. But 20%, like it is now, yeah, for sure. I can definitely see, you know, and I can taste on there. It's a very stark contrast, like starting off with that cigar with the wrapper and then scoring that wrapper off. Definitely you can kind of taste the difference. Yeah, it actually, you know, without having that wrapper in there, it's kind of, yeah, smoothed it out a little bit actually. It's gotten a little bit smoother, not as punchy. And that makes sense if it's a Ligero wrapper on there. I mean, that's, the Ligero is the top 4 primings on the plant, and that that's the strongest tobacco on the plant. You would think it'd be the opposite way, right? The stuff on the bottom would be the strongest, but the way it works is that because of the sun, you know, shining and everything like that, and the photosynthesis and so on and so forth, and then they pick from the bottom to the top, right? So they start with the bottom primings, which is the Velado, and then you have the Seco, and then you have the Ligero on the top. That's just a, I mean, there's charts of the tobacco plants that they show, and then there's like all these other different substrata within those basic ones. And then, you know, another one that's been a hot word lately, especially in the Cuban cigar industry with the Bahique, is the Medio Tiempo, which is like the very top, you know, very rare tobacco for the plant and everything like that. So, and that's supposed to be the strongest out of the leaves of the tobacco because it's at the very top. But the basic breakdown, Velado, Seco, and Ligero, that's basically what the breakdown is for layman's terms like me, simple people. Yeah, it's starting to get back some of that, because it's right now at the demarcation line right there, right where the wrapper's going to start taking hold of the taste of the cigar. So, anywho, I am going to smoke this thing down a little bit further, and then I'll be back with some more tasting notes. So anyway, we're getting down past the first third, and we're getting in toward the second third, and the cigar has just become really mellow. It's kind of lost a little bit of its sweetness. It's just become more. It's got a little bit of a citrusy note in there. There's still got that cacao, but it's really tamped back on the palate. It's kind of cacao and tobacco with a little bit of a sweetness in there, but mostly like kind of cacao and tobacco. But the retro has been a lot smoother, less pepper. There's really no pepper to speak of at all in this thing whatsoever. Yeah, just a really nice, pleasant retro. One thing that's happening too is the wrapper. I know you can't see it, but it's starting to come up, and that's one of the reasons why you don't take the band off right away, because especially if it gets drier or whatever. I don't understand, because it's been in a humidor, so I don't know why this thing's been dried, why the wrapper's so dry. Is that if I take that band off, the wrapper's going to start coming off of the cigar, and it's going to kind of really blow up. So I want to try and keep this thing intact as much as I can. So yeah, it's not always about, you don't want to show off or anything like that because you got a band on there or whatever. It's just the fact that you keep the band on there just in case things start to unravel or start to go sideways on there. At least the band's going to keep things till I get down to about right there where I can take it off, and it's not going to get out of whack too bad, it looks like. But it looks like that, yeah, this wrapper is just a little loose on this cigar. Yeah, the thing about Lonsdale's, when they're smoking right, like this one's smoking good still, even with the loose wrapper. You just need to take, light little sippy puffs on there, and you're going to get plenty of smoke production out of the cigar. And like I said, I mean, it's not a big ring gauge cigar. It's a smaller ring gauge cigar, but you're still going to get plenty of smoke production. I just think that percentage of mixed tobacco in there too is just really going to, it just really, for me, it's like the ideal mix with that ring gauge and that size and that length on the cigar. Most definitely. Yeah, I'm kind of afraid to do another score on the wrapper to see what's going on with that, just because I don't know what's going to happen with this thing on here. Yeah, it definitely still has that sweetness in there, but it's kind of tamped back a little bit. There's, like I said, it's really hasn't changed. The profile of the cigar really hasn't changed that much, other than the fact that it has become a little bit more muted, I guess, or a little bit more nuanced than it was originally starting out with that really big blast, and then it just has continually mellowed out along the way here as we're going through the second third. But it's been a pleasant smoking experience. It's not it's just it is what it is. I mean, it's not really transforming or making a lot of changes or twists and turns and everything like that. It's just you get that kind of really heavy cacao finish with the tobacco on the palate and a nice honey sweetness and that cacao in the retro. But I mean, for $8, it's been a pleasant smoking experience. Other than the wrapper coming up like that, not a bad, I think, price point for this cigar, definitely. Yeah, the wrapper's really starting to come up now. With the heat, it's starting to come down the stick. Oh well, $8 stick. Yeah, the audio sounded like it was a little bit loud in the first part, so I turned down the volume here a little bit. So hopefully it's not going to be killing your ears moving forward here with the volume. I'm going to check it again once I'm done doing this portion of the cigar. Yeah, it's smoking a little bit hot too. I've been smoking that a little bit fast. Sometimes when you get on camera, you smoke a cigar a little bit fast. So anyway, like I said, first third to second third, not a lot of transitions, not a lot of differences, other than that spicy pepper has kind of tamped back a little bit. It's still got that kind of a honey sweetness in there, along with that cacao in the retro. The finish on the palate definitely has that cacao with the tobacco finish on the palate. But it's really kind of maintaining what it is so far. So I am going to smoke this thing down further, and hopefully the wrapper's not going to blow up too bad, and I will be back. Okay, so we've started burning down through the second third, and we're almost to the last third of the cigar. And so in the second third, there actually was a bit of a transition. There was a bit of a citrusy kind of a note that came up in the retro, along with that honey sweetness that was there. And on the palate, it was definitely, there's a really kind of a more of a heavy citrus as opposed to that cacao and the tobacco. It's more of a citrus mixed with the cacao as opposed to just the cacao and the tobacco in there, which has been quite nice and quite pleasant. So it's a little bit of a change from the beginning to like into the second third here on the cigar. But it's not like a powerhouse, like the typical powerhouse LFD cigars where there's just tons of Ligero and tons of pepper, tons of spice on there. This is definitely more, to me, more elegant, more, I don't know, suave, I guess would be the best way to put it. Not liking the fact that this wrapper is kind of blowing up on me right now. But like I said, you just keep the band, I'm going to keep the band on there, burn it right down there, and then pull the band off. And hopefully what's underneath the band is going to be okay. Yeah, another thing to note too is that there is a little bit of a bitterness, like cacao. That bitterness has been prevalent throughout the entire cigar. It's been drying out the palate a little bit, been drinking some liquids with it. I like to just drink a regular Coke with the cigar. Plus the pH factor on this is pretty, I guess, low, because the higher the pH, the more alkaline it is. So it kind of adjusts your palate and gets it back to more of a neutral palate when you're smoking a cigar. That's why I like to drink a Coke with it, because it kind of gets everything back to a neutral on the palate. But yeah, other than the fact of this thing kind of blowing up like this, I mean, this has definitely been a pleasant cigar to smoke. It's nice that it had a little bit of a transition in there with that citrus coming up, mixing with the honey in the retro. Along with that, really, the citrus has gotten quite heavy on the palate and on the finish as well. But all in all, not too bad of a cigar. A pretty nice little find. I mean, I didn't even know that these cigars were in existence until I found this in the bargain bin and wanted to give it a try. But I'm glad I picked it up. And definitely for my palate and my taste and what I like in a cigar, this fits the bill in a lot of ways, because I'm not a big fan of cigars that just blow your face off, blow your lips off, and have that heavy spiciness in there. I like things to be more nuanced in that department and have a little bit more different flavors in there, you know, like a honey sweetness or tobacco or coffee, things like that go in there, as opposed to just a heavy spice on there. Yeah. Actually, a little hint of a coffee coming up now too, as we're getting into this last third here of the cigar. So maybe there's going to be another transition in there, maybe not. I don't know. But I'm going to smoke this, take the band off here shortly, and then I'm going to smoke it down a little bit further, and then I'll be back with some more tasting notes. So we're back in the last third of the cigar here, and what I was talking about before is there's a little bit of a hint of a coffee that came up. And actually, a little bit of a floral note in there as well. That honey sweetness is tamped back, the citrus really has come up a lot. It's really prevalent on the palate. It's pretty much drowning out that cacao and the tobacco finish on the palate. It's become more of a kind of a tangly, citrusy finish on the palate. And so, but there was a little bit more of a transition in here. I'm picking up hints of a floral note in there, hints of coffee, but mostly it's that citrus in the retro, along with a bit of the honey sweetness and those, you know, little tiny hints of the other two notes in there as well on the retro, with that really heavy tangliness on the palate of the citrus, which is pretty much drowning out all of the other stuff on there. And my palate is becoming even more dry now that it's down here in the last third of the cigar. But all in all, I have to say that if you're looking for that really powerful profile that you've gotten used to with the LFDs, you know, like what the 700s, the 500s, with the double Lajero in there and everything like that, this is definitely not going to be a cigar for you. This is more of a nuanced cigar. It doesn't have a lot of that spice and a lot of that pepper in there. It just has a lot of the other stuff in there that I described earlier. And for me, it was definitely a good cigar. Strength-wise, it was, you know, probably medium plus to full. Body-wise, definitely a full-bodied cigar all the way through on this cigar. And I'd have to give this thing a thumbs up, definitely, because, I mean, if I can pick up some more of these cigars, I definitely will, and throw them in the humidor and smoke them from time to time. It's definitely not a cigar that I would say I wouldn't smoke again, for sure. I would definitely smoke this cigar again. It was good. Definitely a thumbs up cigar. So, all this stuff, you know, subscribe to the channel over here, I think, or no, over there, right there. Subscribe to the channel, and then head over to dudecigars.com. There's an aggregator for a lot of stuff. And Smoking Gorilla Lounge will also, SmokingGorillaLounge.com will get you over there as well. And then there's another channel that I do as well, which is a lot of vintage stuff, a lot of vintage Cuban cigars, but a lot of newer Cuban cigars with a mix of New World cigars as well on that channel as well. So trying to kind of put everything together and do things on two different channels. So, but if you have a chance to pick up some of these cigars, it would be great if you did and smoked them, and we could compare notes in the future. So anyway, with that, I've rambled on enough, and that's enough out of me.